Before we move on to Newton's second law of motion, we need to thoroughly understand what net force means. We know that at any point in time, there can be more than one force acting on an object. Take this stationary object for instance. There is a 10 units force acting on it in the upward direction and a 10 units force acting on it in the downward direction. As the forces cancel each other out, we say that the forces are balanced and the net force is zero. Now look at this second object. There is a 15 units force acting on it in the upward direction and a 20 units force acting on it in the downward direction. Are the forces balanced here? No, they are unbalanced because they don't cancel each other out. The net force here will not be zero. Can you guess what the net force will be here? Yes, it will be 5 units downwards. 20 minus 15 is 5, and as the downward force is more in magnitude, the net force will be 5 units downwards. Look at these 3 images and find the net force in each. In the first case, the forces cancel each other out and hence the net force will be zero. What about the second case? Here the upward and the downward forces cancel each other out, but there's still this one force acting towards the right. Here the net force will be 4 units to the right. Why don't you try finding the net force in the third case? Well, the leftward and rightward forces cancel each other out and the net force will be 10 units upwards. Why are we discussing net force? It's because when there's net force acting on an object, its state of motion will change. And when the net force is zero, the object's state of motion will not change. So net force changes the velocity of an object. We can say that a net force causes acceleration. And don't forget, even if the direction changes, there will be acceleration. Even if the speed changes, there will be acceleration. So if a moving object comes to a stop, will there be acceleration? Absolutely, because acceleration is nothing but the rate of change of velocity. To keep a long story short, we can say that net force causes acceleration. If the net force is zero, then the velocity of the object will not change, and hence there will be no acceleration. Now that you know the concept of net force, we can move on to understanding Newton's second law of motion.